Hello everybody, welcome into another lesson. So today we are going to continue on the conic sections unit with circles. And circles are probably the easiest conic sections to talk about. If we remember the definition of a circle from geometry, it is the set of all points a fixed distance from a given point. That given point is the center of the circle. And then, of course, the fixed distances are the endpoints of the circle, and the distance between the center and the endpoints is the radius. So, the standard equation for a circle is x minus h, that quantity squared, plus y minus k, that quantity squared, equal to r squared, where the r is your radius, so it's the radius squared on the right hand side. And then you have x minus h, where h would be the coordinate of your center. So if you set each the x minus h and the y minus k equal to 0, you won't get a vertex. I'm thinking of parabolas. You'll get a center instead at the coordinate hk. So the center will be at the point hk. And what I have here to the left of that is x squared plus y squared equals r squared. This is if you have a center of the circle at the origin at 0, 0, which makes sense. If you put 0 in for h and 0 in for k, you would literally just get x squared plus y squared equals r squared. But this is the general formula itself for the equation of a circle. And notice this time both variables are quadratic. Unlike parabolas where only one of them was quadratic and the other was linear, in a circle both are quadratic. So that's another important thing. So let's get into some examples here. We'll do a couple at the origin. So let's say we have x squared plus y squared equals 49. So you're given x squared plus y squared equals 49. What I'm definitely going to suggest we start with the center. So what is the center? Well, you don't see x minus anything or y minus anything. It's just x squared plus y squared. So your center is at the point 0, 0. So that's easy enough. Let's plot the center while we're at it. Now, we need to find the radius. Remember, it's x squared plus y squared equals r squared. So that means r squared equals 49. Now, when we're calculating lengths, remember, we only take the positive square root. You're not going to have a negative length, so that means r equals 7. So your radius is going to be 7. Now, to graph the circle, here's how you do it. Take your center, which in this case is 0, 0, plot 7 units above the center, so you would be at 0, 7. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 0, 7 right there. In fact, let's label that 0, 7. Here is 0, 0, the center. That's the center right there. Then definitely go 7 units below the center. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you'll be at the point 0, negative 7. And then I would say next go 7 units to the left of 0, 0. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You would end up being at the point negative 7, 0. Then go 7 units to the right of the center. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So then you'll be at the point 7, 0. So I would say about 4 good points, all right? And the center, of course, is just that, stays in the middle. Now, to the best of your ability, draw your circle. And I apologize if it's not the best looking circle, because I never was best at drawing freehand. And there is your circle. It has a radius of 7 units and center at the origin. And if you want, you can certainly draw a radius here. So from the center to the edge of the circle, you could say that's a radius equals 7. So that's a radius of 7 right there. So yeah, circles are relatively basic. They're really pretty dang simple to deal with. All right, let's say this time I'll have x squared plus y squared equals 20. All right, so I have x squared plus y squared equals 20. Let me throw this one out. It's almost faded. Okay. So let's identify the center. Well, the center very clearly is the origin again. It's at 0, 0. So the center is located at 0, 0 at the origin. Let's keep that. In fact, there's your center, 0, 0. All right. Now, what is your radius? Well, the radius squared is equal to 20, right? So we need to find the radius. The radius, of course, would equal the square root of 20, which would break down into the square root of 4 times the square root of 5. So your radius is really 2 times the square root of 5 units. So we need to figure out what that is approximately. Let's round to about 3 decimal places. So let me go into my calculator here. So 2 times the square root of 5 is about 4.472. That's approximately 4.472. So let's go that many units above the center. So 1, 2, 3, 4, a little under 4.5. So here is going to be 0, 2 times the square root of 5 for one vertice of the circle. Let's go that many units below the center. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, a little less than 4.5. So this will be 0, negative 2 times the square root of 5. And then now let's go that many units left. So 1, 2, 3, 4, a little less than 4.5 there. So that'll end up being negative 2 times the square root of 5, 0. Let me move this a little bit left because I don't want to draw over that. So negative 2 times the square root of 5, 0. And then let's go that many units right of the center. So 1, 2, 3, 4, a little less than 4.5. This will end up being 2 times the square root of 5, 0 for this vertice. Okay, now that we have all that, let's go ahead and start drawing a circle. And there is your circle at center 0, 0 with a radius of 2 times the square root of 5. And if you feel so inclined, draw yourself a radius to one edge that the radius equals 2 times the square root of 5. And there you go. You have officially graphed your circle. Alright, now let's get into if the center is not at the origin. So we're going to deal with ones where the center's not at the origin. Again, it's really pretty simple. Circles are very simple to deal with. So what if I had x minus 1 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals 8? Alright, so I have the quantity of x minus 1 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals 8. Well, let's identify the center. The center is definitely not at the origin this time. To get your coordinate for the center, set the x minus 1 equal to 0, so your x coordinate will be 1. Set the y minus 2 equal to 0, your y coordinate will be 2. So the center of the circle is located at the point 1, 2. So there's your center at 1, 2, right there. Okay, now we also have our radius to deal with. So the radius squared is equal to 8, which means the radius equals the square root of 8, which would end up being the square root of 4 times the square root of 2, which means your radius is equal to 2 times the square root of 2. So let's get a decimal approximation on that so we know about where to go. Alright, so let's figure this out. So 2 times the square root of 2 is approximately 2.828. 2.828 is approximately 2 times the square root of 2. So now, above 1, 2, you're going to go that many units upward. You're going to, when you go above, you're going to leave your x coordinate alone, but you're going to add that to your y coordinate. So 3, 4, about 4.828. So you'll have the point 1, 2 plus 2 times the square root of 2. That's how you would write that. 1, 2 plus 2 times the square root of 2, which would be about 1, then 4.828. Now let's go below that many units. So let's go below 2. So that would put me at about 1, negative 8.28. So right about there. So this wound up being the point 1 because my x coordinate was left alone. Then 2 minus 2 times the square root of 2. So there's my one vertex there. So now we've gone above and below. Let's go to the left and to the right. Okay, so if we're going left and right of the center, this time that means we're going to leave our y coordinate alone. We're going to affect the x coordinate. So 1 minus 2.828 would be about negative 1.828. So you'll roughly get the point then here. Well, the exact point would end up being 1 minus 2 times the square root of 2, and then your y coordinate of 2. We didn't change the y coordinate this time. Now let's go that many units to the right also. So 1 plus 2.828 would be about 3.828, so that'd be about right there. So you would get the coordinate 1 plus 2 times the square root of 2, and then 2 for your y coordinate. Now that we've got 4 major vertices and the center, let's go ahead and graph this. And there's your circle at the center 1, 2 with the various vertices that has a radius of 2 times the square root of 2. That's exactly what we'd be looking at. good one. So we have 24 times x plus 2 squared plus 24 times y plus 3 squared equal to 96. So we have 24 times the quantity of x plus 2 squared plus 24 times the quantity of y plus 3 squared equals 96. Well, a couple things here. If you ever have a coefficient on your quantities, that coefficient always needs to be 1. The good news is you have the same coefficient on each. If you didn't have the same coefficient, what would happen is this would become an ellipse, which will be in the next lesson. We'll get into ellipses. But if you have the same coefficient on both your variable terms, then it's a circle. So we need to divide both sides by 24 to make this, in simpler form, because the coefficient should be 1 on the left-hand side. So divide both sides by 24. This turns into x plus 2 squared plus y plus 3 squared equals the right-hand side. 96 divided by 24 is 4. Alright, so now this just becomes x plus 2 squared plus y plus 3 squared equals 4. Something much easier to work with. Now let's go ahead and identify the center. So the center, set your x plus 2 equal to 0. The x-coordinate of that would be negative 2. Set your y plus 3 equal to 0. Your y-coordinate is negative 3. So the center will be located at the point negative 2, negative 3, which would be right here. So here's your center at negative 2, negative 3. All right. Now we got to deal with the radius. So the radius squared equals 4, which means your radius would equal 2. Okay, so now let's go above this by 2 points. Go above the center. If I add 2 to negative 3, I'll get the point 2, negative 1. So I'm leaving my x-coordinate alone since I'm going above. I'll get the point 2, negative 1. And guess what? We got to go below the center 2 units. If I go below the center 2 units, I would be at the point 2, negative 5. I'm sorry, negative 2, negative 5. There's negative 2, negative 1, and then negative 2, negative 5. Alright, so I've gone above and below the center. Now we need to go to the right and left of the center. If I'm going to the right and left, that means this time I'm actually affecting the x direction and leaving the y direction alone. So if I go to the left from the center 2 units, so negative 2 minus 2 would be negative 4, negative 3. So here is the point negative 4, negative 3. And then if I go to the right of the center 2 units, I would add 2 to negative 2. I would get the point 0, 3. So here's the point 0, 3 right here. Now that I have 4 vertices in the center, I can go ahead and draw this. And so there is my circle with center negative 2, negative 3, and radius of 2. That would be found right there. Let's do one more. Let's do just one more with a center not at the origin. And then we'll move on to some other stuff here in this lesson. All right. Nine times x plus 4 squared plus 9 times y minus 3 squared would equal 81. Okay, so we have 9 times the quantity of x plus 4 squared plus 9 times the quantity of y minus 3 squared equals 81. Well, again, the coefficients on your variable terms are something other than 1. But at least they're the same coefficient, so that makes your life a lot easier. So that means we need to make these coefficients 1, so we got to divide both sides by 9. So if we do that, you'll end up with x plus 4 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals the right-hand side, while 81 divided by 9 is going to be 9. So this reduces into x plus 4 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 9. Now we got a form we can work with. Let's start out by finding the center. So to get your x-coordinate, set that x plus 4 equal to 0. Your x-coordinate would be at negative 4. To get your y-coordinate, set that y minus 3 equal to 0. Well, that would give you y equals 3. So your center is at negative 4, 3. So here's your center located at negative 4, 3. Now we need to find the radius. Well, the radius squared equals 9, which means your radius has to equal 3. So we got the center, and now we know the radius. Okay. So let's go ahead and go above and below 3 units. So we're going to leave the x-coordinate alone, but we're going to change the y-coordinates to get vertices. So if I add 3 units to the 3 on negative 4, 3, I would end up getting negative 4, 6. So here's negative 4, 6. And then if I subtract 3 from negative 4, 3, I would end up being at negative 4, 0. So I'd have the vertice negative 4, 0. Now, this time we're going to go to the left and to the right 3 units. So that means we're going to leave the y-coordinate alone, but affect the x-coordinate. So to go to the left from negative 4, 3, if I subtract 3 from negative 4, I'd be at negative 7, 3. So the point negative 7, 3 is on the circle. And then if I go to the right 3 units, add 3 to negative 4, I'd be at negative 1, 3. So here's the coordinate negative 1, 3. So now we got 4 vertices and the center. Let's go ahead and graph this. And there you go. So there's your circle with center negative 4, 3 and your radius of 3. So yeah, graphing circles is very easy. This is incredibly easy. Now ellipses, not quite as much. Those are not quite as easy, but they're not super hard either. But that's the next lesson, will be ellipses. They kind of tie into circles, but well, we'll see how. Alright, so you're going to be given the center of a circle, which in this case will make it 0, 0. So the center of the circle is 0, 0, and the radius is 3. We need to find the equation of the circle in standard form. So the center of the circle is 0, 0, and the radius is 3. Well, good news is, remember it's x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Well, anything minus 0 is itself, so the equation would literally be x squared plus y squared equals your radius squared. Well, 3 squared is 9. So the equation you should get for that would be x squared plus y squared equals 9. Pretty simple. Let's do one more with the origin. Okay. So the center is at 0, 0, but the radius is 9. So the center is at 0, 0, but the radius is 9. Okay, so you're still going to have x squared plus y squared would actually equal that 9 squared, which is 81. So the equation you should get would be x squared plus y squared equals 81 for a circle with a center at 0, 0 and a radius of 9. Alright, let's change up the center a little bit. It's not going to be at the origin now. Alright, so we have x minus 3 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals... No. I just gave it away. Shoot. Alright, so the center would be at the point 3, negative 2 with a radius of 6. Alright, so we have a center of the circle at 3, negative 2 and the radius of 6. Okay? Well, what does that mean? So let's set up our x minus and y minus first. So, of course, you would take x minus your x value, so that would be x minus 3, that quantity squared, plus y minus negative 2, which would actually turn into y plus 2 squared, would equal your radius squared. Well, 6 squared is 36. So the equation you should end up getting would be x minus 3, that quantity squared, plus y plus 2, that quantity squared, equals 36. All right. Now let's see. X minus 5 squared plus y minus 4 squared. Dang it, I keep doing it. The center is going to be, let's make that center negative 5, 4. So the center will be located at negative 5, 4. You have a radius of 11. Alright, so you have a center of a circle at negative 5, 4 with a radius of 11. So what's that going to look like? Well, take x minus negative 5, that would turn into x plus 5, that quantity squared, plus, now take the y minus that y coordinate of 4, so it'd be y minus 4 squared equals that radius squared. Well, 11 squared is 121. So what you should get for your equation would be x plus 5 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals 121. Alright, so that's really pretty simple for doing that. Now let's do a few harder ones here. Now, for these, the center will be at the origin, so we'll make everyone's life easier. The center is at the point 0, 0. Passes through well, at least for these couple, we'll make it easy. We'll make the center at 0, 0. Alright, so you have a circle with the center 0, 0 and it passes through the point 0, negative 10. So what does that mean that it passes through? That means 0, negative 10 is on the circle. It's a vertice of 0 of the circle. So what we don't know for sure is the radius. We know the center, but we don't know the radius. How are you going to find the radius since it passes through the point 0, negative 10? You just use your distance formula. So the radius is equal to your distance formula, so take your x2 of 0 minus your x1 of 0 squared plus your y2 of -10 squared to -10 minus your y1 of 0 squared. Alright, so that's going to equal the square root of 0 plus -10 squared, which would end up equaling 0. We don't even worry about. That would end up equaling the square root of 100, which means your radius is 10. So your radius is 10. Alright, so the center then 0, 0, that means you're going to get x squared plus y squared equals your radius of 10 squared, so that would equal 100. Alright, so we have x squared plus y squared equals 100. That would be the equation of this circle. And let's do another one with the center at the origin. Again, that's pretty simple. Then we're going to spice it up a bit. Actually, we'll do a couple more that where the center's still at the origin, but harder. Okay. Another relatively easy one. So, the center of this circle is at 0, 0, and it passes through the point 8, 0. So, we know the center, but we don't know the radius. To find the radius, you're going to have to use your distance formula. So, that'll be the square root of your x2, which is 8, minus your x1 of 0 squared, plus your y2 of 0 minus your y1 of 0. That would be squared. So that's going to equal, of course, the square root of 8 squared plus 0 squared. Well, 0, 0. That would be the square root of 64, which equals 8. So you have a radius of 8. The center is 0, 0, so you would get x squared plus y squared equals your radius of 8 squared, so that'd be 64. So you should get x squared plus y squared equals 64 for this equation. Now, we'll do a couple with the center at the origin, but it's not going to be quite as easy as far as what point it passes through. This time it passes through the point -3, -4. So we have a circle with center 0, 0, but it passes through the point -3, -4. Well, we know the center, but we don't know the radius. So let's go ahead and find the radius. So use your distance formula. That'll be the square root of, let's see, your x2, which is -3, minus your x1 of 0 squared, plus your y2 of -4 minus your y1 of 0, that quantity squared. So that's going to equal the square root of -3 squared plus -4 squared. So that would give you, of course, the square root of 9 plus 16, which equals the square root of 25, which would just equal 5. So we identified the radius to be 5 units. But the center is at 0, 0, so that's just going to be x squared plus y squared equals your radius of 5 squared, that'd be 25. So you get x squared plus y squared equals 25. Let's do one more with the center at the origin, then we're going to make the center not at the origin for a few examples. Alright, so another one here. The center is at the origin, 0, 0, but it passes through the point -4, -1. Okay. Well, let's find the radius. We know the center, but we don't know the radius. So use your distance formula. Take your x2 of -4 minus your x1 of 0 squared plus your y2 of -1 minus your y1 of 0 squared. Well, then you get the square root of -4 squared plus that -1 squared, which would turn into the square root of 16 plus 1, which would just give you the square root of 17. So you have a radius of the square root of 17. Well, we know the center is 0, 0, so that'll be x squared plus y squared equals your radius of the square root of 17 squared, which would just be 17. So you should get the equation x squared plus y squared equals 17. All right, we're changing this yet again. Let's change this all over again here. It's still going to pass through, but your center is no longer at the origin. Let's say the center is at -9, 10. So the center of the circle is all the way at -9, 10. It passes through the point, let's see, 5, -3. So you have the center of the circle at -9, 10, and it passes through the point 5, -3. Well, we know the center, but we don't know the radius. Well, still the same philosophy here. Let's find the radius by taking the distance between the point it passes through and the center. So the radius, that's going to be the distance formula, equals the square root of your x2 of 5 minus your x1 of -9. Well, 5 minus -9 turns into 5 plus 9 squared, plus your y2 of -3 minus your y1 of 10. So you'd have the square root of 5 plus 9 squared plus -3 minus 10 squared. So this would equal the square root of 14 squared plus -13 squared, which would equal the square root of 196 plus 169, which is going to equal, I want to say, the square root of 365. Let's just be sure of that. Yes, so that's equal to the square root of 365. Well, let's see if we can identify the radius. As far as, like, does it break down any further? It doesn't. So your radius is the square root of 365. Okay. Now, to find the equation, you're going to take x minus your -9. So what is, you'll have x minus -9, which will really turn into x plus 9. That quantity squared, plus take your y minus that y coordinate of 10, so it would be y minus 10, that quantity squared, equals your radius of square root of 365 squared, which would just simply be 365. So the equation you should get would be x plus 9 squared plus y minus 10 squared equals 365. All right. Let's do a few more examples of these type, and then we'll be done with the lesson. It's going to pass through -6, 4. Let's make the center -3, -2. Okay. So the center of the circle is at -3, -2, and it passes through the point -6, 4. So we know the center, but we don't know the radius. So let's go ahead and use the distance formula between these 2 points to find the radius. So that's the square root of your x2 coordinate, which is -6, minus your x1 coordinate of -3. Well, -6 minus -3 turns into -6 plus 3 squared, plus your y2 of 4, minus your y1 of -2. Okay, well, 4 minus -2 turns into 4 plus 2, that quantity squared. So that's going to equal the square root of -3 squared plus 6 squared. So that's going to give you the square root of 9 plus 36, which would give you the square root of 45. Which means your radius is really equal to 3 times the square root of 5. So you have a radius of 3 times the square root of 5. Your center is at -3, -2. So, all right, take x minus that -3. That would be x plus 3, that quantity squared for the first part of the equation, plus take your y minus your -2 squared. That would end up being y plus 2 squared equals that 3 times the square root of 5 squared. So really and truly, you should get x plus 3 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals 45. So the equation of this circle you should get is x plus 3 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals 45. I think we could do one more, then I think we get the idea. So really, these aren't that bad. Just understand passing through means the point lies on the circle. It's on the edge of the circle. So you got to find the distance from the center to that point. That'll give you your radius. Alright, so we have a circle with center 7, -4 passing through the point 2, -12. So we know the center, but we don't know the radius. So let's use the distance formula to find our radius. So the radius equals the square root of that x2 coordinate of 2 minus your x1 coordinate of 7. That would be to the second power, plus your y2 coordinate of -12 minus your y1 of -4. Well, -12 minus -4 turns into -12 plus 4 squared. So that's going to equal then the square root of -5 squared plus -8 squared. So this will end up equaling the square root of 25 plus 64, which would end up giving you the square root of 89. And really, we can't simplify the square root of 89 any further, so the radius is the square root of 89. So now to form your equation, all right, well, take your x minus your x coordinate of 7, so this would be x minus 7 squared, plus, now take your y minus your -4, that would actually turn into y plus 4, that quantity squared, equals your radius of the square root of 89 squared, which would just be 89. So the equation you should get would end up being x minus 7 squared plus y plus 4 squared equals 89. So that's it for this lesson. Next lesson we'll start a 2-part lesson on ellipses, which those are also really cool, but they're a little bit different. I'll preface it by saying that you can think of circles as a special type of ellipse, which will kind of help transition into the next topic in conic sections. So I hope everyone has a great night. Take care.